Okay, hi, welcome everyone. Very delighted to welcome you to this special session that we have this month. Just to get started, many of you have already introduced yourselves. Those of you who haven't and who just joined, please announce yourself in the chat box. Tell us your name and your location so that we all know each other just to get started. For those of you who are looking to claim CCEUs from this session, we will post the link to the claim form towards the end of the session, so don't worry about that. So welcome to the learning session. I'm with the Learning Management Group at ICF Mumbai, and let me introduce you to the hosting team. There are 4 of us on the hosting team today, me, Tushima, and with me, there's Anuradha, Nimesh, and Shweta. We're all coaches. We're all members of the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, and we all volunteer with the Learning Management team. So as we're going through the session, I request you to keep yourselves on mute and video off so that we preserve bandwidth. We will be opening up the session at various points for questions, interactions, and so on. So you can take yourself off mute and switch on your cameras at that point. And yes, we will have a quick photo session at the end. So stay tuned for that. If you have questions and comments during the session, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Shweta and the rest of us will definitely be looking at that, and we'll make every effort to ensure that all the questions are taken towards the end of the session. So with that, I'd like to introduce today's topic and today's speaker. Today's topic is the art and practice of holding space. Your being is your doing. Holding space is a practice in cultivating our personal presence in deep conversations, in coaching conversations, so that we can make our service to others more meaningful. Rather than offering advice or guidance or being prescriptive, we can learn to hold others in the light of their innate resourcefulness and wholeness. I'm quoting Rachel here, and she's going to tell you a lot more when I invite her. So it's about providing a safe space for others, for them to explore and access their own deeper truths. So it's really about empowering the other person. Today, more than ever, people are wanting these kind of spaces where they can express themselves fully and be themselves. And that's what we're going to explore and practice in today's session. I'd like to introduce you to our expert speaker, Rachel Starbrack. Rachel has about 20 years of experience in holding space as a teacher, licensed psychotherapist, and certified deep transformational coach. She's passionate about creating and holding spaces that engender deep self-knowing, radical self-expression, and powerful connections. She's the co-creator and learning leader for the Holding Space training through the Center for Transformational Coaching, and she facilitates one-to-one and group transformational experiences, which allow and honor the many faces of our human nature. Valuing spontaneity, creativity, authenticity, and freedom, she embodies a heartfelt brevity and depth of presence that she generously shares with others. I've been privy to this myself because I've attended Rachel's course. Rachel lives in Santa Fe in the US, and she works with clients in private practice, both nationally within the US as well as internationally. A fun fact about Rachel: she is trained and she professionally trained to be a theater actor before she became a therapist and then a coach. So Rachel, welcome, very warm welcome to you, and we're all yours.
Thank you, Tushima, so much. And thank you to everyone. I'm so grateful and excited to be here. Before all of you joined, I did tell the learning team that it's like Christmas morning. I could barely sleep. I was so excited to be here with you all. So welcome to all of you here live. I see we have folks from all over the world, which is so amazing. And if you're not here with us live, if you're joining us on the recording later, I just want to say that I warmly welcome you too. Like Tushima said so well, I'm here on behalf of the Center for Transformational Coaching, and I've been teaching the holding space training there for several years. I was also the co-creator of that course. And in addition to that, I've been practicing holding space for nearly 20 years, not even really knowing that that's what I was doing, but working as a teacher and a facilitator and a retreat leader and a therapist and a coach, and holding space has been the thread through all of the various roles and ways of serving that I've done. And so I'm so excited to be here with all of you and talk about this topic. And really, our time together is going to be spent in the following ways. We're going to be talking more about what it actually means to hold space. This term, holding space, you might feel it and see it in a lot of places. You might be familiar with it, but we're going to get to talk about what that actually means, begin to understand it more. And why now, today, more than ever before in our world and in our collective evolution, is it meaningful and powerful and significant for not only coaches, but therapists and teachers and parents and community members and corporate leaders, why it's so important and powerful to learn the art and practice of holding space, to engender deep and powerful healing shifts and transformation. Holding space is not so much about what we are doing, but it's really about who we are being. It's about our presence and ways of being. And we'll talk about how through whatever we're doing, whether we're having dinner with our family or we're leading a big meeting or working with a client, how we can begin to create these safe and sacred sanctuaries through our presence. Spaces where people can really start to relax, to detox, to de-stress, to become more present themselves, and to be very authentically expressed. Later in the session, you will all have a chance to practice holding space, which I'm really excited for you all. And this is going to be very gentle and easy and relaxing, is my hope. And then I know you all have some amazing questions, and I will absolutely leave time at the end to get to all your questions. I'm here and I absolutely want to hear from you during our time together. So we'll start with talking more about what it means to hold space. And when I'm giving talks like this and when I'm working with students, I love to use the metaphor of the bowl. So I always start out by asking people, and this question's kind of silly, but what does a bowl do? What does a bowl do? And I would just invite you all, if you want, even a few of you, just to write in the chat. What does a bowl do? Or you can answer just to yourself is good too. But if anybody wants to write in a chat, I would love to see what you have to say. Holds, supports, holds. Nothing, it just is. Holds things. Secure, beautiful, contains. Y'all got it. A bowl holds. It just holds. It just contains and supports. And it does this uniformly, right? A bowl will hold hot water the same way it will hold cold water. A bowl will hold fresh, sweet smelling, ripe fruit the way it will hold sour, rotting, molding fruit. The bowl doesn't discriminate. The bowl doesn't actually really care what it's holding. It just supports and contains and provides a stable container for its contents. It doesn't seek to change anything about its contents or amend them to make them better or different. It doesn't even try to get rid of it. It's just holding. So this is a really, really, really good thing to come back to when we think about what does it mean to hold space. And I will liken it to the more human experience. So you might want to reflect for a moment in your own life on the ripe, fresh, sweet fruit, right? The things in your life that are easy for you to hold. And those could be certain emotions, certain experiences, certain beliefs. It's comfortable. I could hold this all day. I could hold this for a lifetime. I could hold this for years. No problem at all. And then there's things that might be more of the rotten fruit category. Things that are more uncomfortable to hold, hard to hold. I don't want this rotting banana. I don't want this emotion. I don't want to hold this experience. I don't want to hold this belief inside of myself. It's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's smelly. I don't like it, right? And it's true of things outside of ourselves too. So there may be experiences and people and things going on in the world easy to hold for you, easy to be with for you, and other things that are not easy to be with, things that we judge, we try to avoid or distract ourselves from. Now, holding space is first and foremost about us as the space holder. It is all about our come from, our perspective, our beliefs, our thoughts, our judgments, our emotions. How we hold the space is an extension of ourselves. And so if we wish to become better space holders in the world, then we have to grow our awareness around what it is that we have a hard time holding. For whatever we are unable to host in ourselves, we will be unable to hold for another. So I'll give an example of this. Let's say that you have a hard time holding anger. It's hard for me to hold my own anger. It's hard for me to be with my anger. And I don't really practice it. I usually distract myself, try to make myself feel better, whatever it is. Look on the bright side of things, have a drink, whatever it is, right? When that anger shows up in a client, in a boss, in a coworker, in a child, right? When that anger shows up in our space and we're not able to hold it for ourselves, or we haven't grown the capacity to hold it for ourselves, we will inevitably and potentially even unconsciously close down to that anger. It's like you take the bowl and you go flatten it. The space closes down. The space of possibility and the spaciousness closes down. We might bring in our own agenda to the space. Oh, anger is not healthy. Anger is not productive, right? Anger is not good or comfortable. So let's get out of this anger. Let's shift this anger. Let's change it, right? You might check out. You might kind of dissociate or start thinking about something else, which doesn't create presence. And so again, if we want to start to embody the bowl, if we want to be able to be with what our client is bringing to the table with full heart, with unconditional presence to them, then this is a journey of our own self-healing too. It's a journey of growing our capacity to allow and be with whatever is arising in our own experience. Holding space is a lot of unlearning. It's what I like to say in my classes. It's unlearning. We're so used to having to do something, right? To do something, to make something different, to change something, to get somewhere. And I think as coaches, especially too, we're trying to get our client to get somewhere that they're not. The client wants to get somewhere that they're not. But folks, this is truly the antithesis of holding space. The art and practice of learning to hold space is about less doing and more being, less action and more allowing, less questions and techniques and tools, and cultivating more trust and spaciousness. And what are we trusting? What are we actually trusting in? Well, we're trusting in the other person's process. We're trusting in the process that the world is going through. We're trusting in life. And maybe we're even trusting in something greater. Call it spirit or higher intelligence or God, whatever you might call it. That essentially, when we're holding space for someone, we're not judging their experience. We're not saying it's wrong, it's too slow, you're stuck. It's none of that. It's like this person, I'm holding this person in the perfection of this moment, in the perfection of who they are, that they're not someone broken that I'm here to fix or save or rescue from anything. But really, the most honoring way I can be with them is to say, I see you. I see you as the perfect human that you are. And whatever you're going through is also perfect. And I'm here to walk beside you on that path and on that journey, to be with you so that whatever the process that is already underway in you can come more fully forward, can come more alive. There's something deeply, deeply healing, folks, that happens when we stop moving so fast, when we stop trying to get somewhere. And we start to actually slow down and we make the present moment meaningful. As long as we're trying to fix ourselves or change ourselves, at some level, we perceive ourselves as not enough, as broken, as someone needing to be fixed. And so the healing piece comes from, if I'm going to meet myself and others with compassion, with acceptance, with love, in whatever I'm feeling or experiencing, that's the healing moment. That's when the deep healing can actually happen. And so I love this quote by the writer and spiritual teacher, Jeff Foster. A true healer simply remains fully present as the storm of healing rages, providing a safe field in which, sorry, I forgot my buff is, providing a safe field in which unfamiliar and intense energies can be felt, bound up emotions can be released, and we can come out of time together, out of the drama and chaos of my life, and breathe into our bodies, fall into our being, reset, recharge, simplify, rest. The world is moving so fast. There's so much chaos. People are going so quickly, always trying to produce, create, do. It's just the machine, right? It's the machine. And when we can create a space where people can just rest, they can just be, they can pause, they can breathe, they can feel. These things might sound simple, but they're not. It's profound for people to be in the presence of one who can create a space like this, who doesn't need anything from the other person, who doesn't need them to be anything different. And I want to say, folks, not only is this incredibly nourishing and healing for the other, but it changes the way that we are with people. It changes the way that we coach. It changes the way that we listen and that we respond. It deepens and enhances the level of connection for all who are in the space. It also expands possibility. It enlivens possibility. Because if you can imagine, if the bowl can hold anything, right? And we're just present, and we're spacious, and we're grounded, and we're relaxed, whatever wants to happen is going to happen. And we don't even know what that is. We're open, we're curious, we don't know, right? We're in the unknown of it. And maybe there are pent up emotions that are ready to be expressed fully, lively, authentically. Maybe there's creative ideas, right? You can hold space in, a lot of corporate leaders are learning this because they want to invite more creative energy, new ideas, new thought, higher perspective from their employees. When we're holding space, a lot of time people can actually tune into the deeper wisdom inside of themselves, their own knowing. They can hear it in new ways. And when ready, if the person is ready, powerful transformative shifts can happen. Deep healing can happen. Long held trauma can start to be released, even in a coaching context. So I want to talk now a little bit about why hold space now. And I'm sure most of you are already knowing how important what I'm saying is for the time that we're in. We've all been through so much, folks, in the last 2 years. I mean, it's astounding what the world has gone through. So much disruption, so much chaos, so much loss. So many systems and structures breaking down into groundlessness. So much uncertainty and unrest. And all of this, combined with the increased isolation of the pandemic, has had a really big internal impact. And you may notice this in your families, in your communities, in your children, in yourself. I know for me and my colleagues, I see more anxiety and depression arising, more disconnection from self. People are asking really big questions. Who am I? What is this? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What is life really about? And Tushima said it in her introduction, as the world becomes more wobbly and more complex, the need for safe and sacred spaces where people can come together and they can feel connected to themselves and others. And they have permission to be themselves, and a space they can actually just process what is going on. It's so, so important right now, more than ever before. And I want to talk about a particular concept that I think that it's so wonderful for coaches to know about, for everybody to know about, but for anyone really working with people in any kind of personal growth process. I want to talk to you all about this concept of the liminal space. And the liminal space comes from anthropology and specifically rites of passage work. So when I say rites of passage work, what I mean is these big shifts in identity that kind of happen through the lifespan. And so the whole world has entered into a liminal space. We've been in a liminal space for the last couple years. And what I mean by that is it's a space between the no longer and the not yet. The world as we once knew it, we will never return to. The stability, the consistency, the ordinary, the known, the foundation that we as a planet stood on is gone. It's been dismantled. And yet what I call the new world order, the new ways of being and doing, the new kinds of communities, the new ways of relating, the new structures and systems, it hasn't yet fully formed. It's in the process of forming, but we're not there yet. And I'm sure most of you, when I talk about this, can feel it in your body. I can feel this liminal space, this void space. It's unknown. It's quite groundless. It's like we're hanging in the balance. And it's tender and it's uncomfortable. It's scary sometimes. And without this foundation, right, without these stable, consistent, known structures around us to attach ourselves to depend on, without any of that, so much comes up in people. Lots of emotion, repressed rage, repressed grief, confusion, disappointment, worry. For a lot of people, what I see in my practice and with my students, long-held traumas are starting to come to the surface. So what I mean by that is if something happened in the past and we didn't attend to it, because again, we were moving so fast that we really didn't have time for it, maybe. You know, things we didn't attend to in our childhood, in our younger years that, you know, is starting to come back, patterns of behavior, thinking, beliefs, it's all starting to rise to the surface in this liminal space. And you can imagine, you know, due to how uncomfortable this is, people just want to get to the other side as quickly as possible. Get me to the next stable thing. Get me to the next known thing. I want the job. I want the title. I want the partner. I want my child to be safe. I want to know that I'm going to be safe. I want to know that I have a house, right? Whatever it is for the person. I want to make sure my company's making money. All these ways that make us feel safe. People want to get there as fast as they can so they can just eject themselves out of the liminal space. But it's not how it works. It's not how it works. And not only is it not how it works, but there's such a precious opportunity we have in the liminal space right now. And as space holders, as coaches and teachers and therapists and everything that we are, it's really important that we understand the gifts of this space and the potentials that exist in this space so that when we're sitting with someone and they're trying to scramble to the other side, that we can sit in a grounded place, in a trusting space, just inviting them to be a little more present, even a little bit more present to where they are. Because as people can grow their own capacity to be with what's happening, anything that's rising to the surface can start to be heard and felt and attended to and ultimately released. We can either carry that stuff with us into the new world, or we can take this opportunity we have right now to empty our own bowl, I would say. To empty our own bowl, to honor ourselves really deeply and speaking to what's true for us. And when we empty our bowls, right, well, then what happens? We get to remember who we really are. And what do I mean by that? We get to remember our own resiliency and our own strength. We get to know ourselves on a very level, on a very deep level. Our hearts, our capacity to love, our profound capacity. And then in that spaciousness that's created when we start to empty out, we can listen and sense what wants to emerge. And this is how, as coaches, you can really help your clients. We have to empty out first, but then we can start to listen for what wants to emerge. What deeper truths are there that I have about myself and the world? What do I know is inherently right and true for me? What higher perspective do I have that can guide me on the path forwards? And then we start to create this new world from such an authentic place, you know? And can you imagine if everybody was doing this? If everybody was working in this way and everybody was starting to come back alive and come into the world from what I call a soul aligned place? Can you imagine the kind of communities that would be created, the kind of schools, the kind of work environments? It would be profound to me. It would be profound. So we all have the opportunity to co-create what's coming for ourselves, for our families, our communities, and for the world. And it really begins with us as the space holder. It really does, because how we relate to this time and how we relate to what's happening for others and our clients will shift the way that we show up in the space, will shift the kinds of questions we ask, will shift the interventions we do. And I just want to say really quickly, folks, that I know holding space is a lot about being. Being is phenomenal. I think we don't give enough credit to being, right? We come from a very doing culture. But I want you to know that just because you're holding space or you're integrating holding space with the work that you're doing, it doesn't mean you just give up doing. Some people are like, well, what do I do, if I'm just being? And I get it, I get it. The ego is really into doing. I get it. So I just want you to know it's not that you're not doing anything. You're just giving more value to your being. You're making it as important as you're doing. And the doing can actually stem from your beingness. It can actually the doing can come forth from your beingness, right? So if my intention is to be present, or if my intention is to be peaceful, or if my intention is to be trusting, right? And I have these practices where I can start to really embody it. Again, whatever I do, I trust that it comes from that place. And so the doing and being start to become really integrated in this work. I just want to read this other quote. Some of you may have already started, but I just want to say this other quote. When we are in touch with our open nature, our emptiness, we exert an enormous attraction to other human beings. And if others are in the same space or entering it, they resonate with us, and immediately doors are open to us. This state where we connect deeply with others and doors open is there waiting for us. It is like an optical illusion. All we have to do is squint and see that it has been there all along waiting for us. All we have to do is see the oneness that we are. When we are in touch with our own open nature, it's incredibly attractive. So as space holders, our way of being is the permission, is the invitation. We can invite someone to get in deeper touch with themselves. But if we're not in touch with our deeper self, if we're in fear, if we're in judgment, if we're going too fast, they won't be able to step into that space. We're the ones that go first. We're the ones that slow down first. We're the ones that become present first. And then whatever we're talking about, you will feel the other start to deepen into their own experience and start to settle in. So I just want to put up a few questions for you to consider either now or perhaps later this evening or in the days to come. But just to reflect on, who am I being? Who have you been being in your life lately? Who am I being in my daily life? With my family, my coworkers, even out in the world? Who am I being at the grocery store? Or stuck in traffic? What is the energy that I'm bringing to these spaces? And who am I being in relationship to current events or world happenings? How am I reacting or responding to what I'm seeing go on in the world? Again, no judgment, folks. I ask these questions for you not to judge yourself, just to bring more awareness in. And then, who do I want to be? Who do I really want to be with myself, my family, complete strangers. So I'll just leave these up for a moment so that if you'd like to write them down or just take a moment to reflect. And if you're not being who you want to be, what's getting in the way? So folks, I now would like to guide you in a little visualization where we can start to actually feel what all this feels like after I just talked to you for that amount of time about the bowl and spaciousness. And we can start to cultivate our presence and practice that together. And when we do it together, it's very, very powerful. So trust that wherever you are in the world, that there are, how many folks? 126 of us here. And that we can create the space here together. We can actually feel the energy that's created here together. So I invite you wherever you are, if you're driving, of course, keep your hands on the wheel. Do not close your eyes, please. Be safe. But if you're not driving and you can, take everything out of your hands. You have your phone in your pocket. I invite you to just put that down. And if your body needs to move or to stretch in any way, it's morning here in California. So I'm going to stretch a little bit. But just make yourself more comfortable. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes. And just taking some breaths. You can let out a sound, you can breathe through your mouth. But you don't need to change anything about yourself. You don't need to change the way you're breathing. You don't need to change any of the sensations in your body. Just bringing your awareness to your breath and noticing how you are, your quality of being. And just begin to see if it's possible. Just gently invite yourself to slow down. Slowing down the pace of any thoughts in your mind. Slowing down your breathing. Maybe even slowing down your heart rate. With every exhalation, it's like sinking a little deeper into warm water. And now bringing some awareness to the spine. Seeing if you can ask the spine to be still. And asking the mind to just get really still. And you can imagine the mind like a placid body of water, like a placid lake. And now just start to notice the space inside of you. Notice how when you slow down and you get still, you can really feel into this spaciousness. Feeling a little deeper into your own openness, your own open nature. Perhaps even a sense of emptiness. The bowl is not a rigid material thing, you know. When we are the bowl, we are dynamic. We are energetic. We can expand and contract. We are enduring, but we're flexible. And as you breathe into this energy, you could almost imagine that it expands outward from your being, that it reaches the edges of your being and perhaps even beyond your own body. And this may be very new for you, so be gentle with yourself and do not judge your experience in any way. Just begin to sense into that dynamic of being grounded and inside of yourself and expansive and open at the same time. And if you like, if there's any doubt or fear or stress in you, you can invite in spirit to hold with you. And what I mean by spirit is any kind of higher intelligence you may believe in, whether it's nature or your own soul and spirit, or God, beings of light, angels, spirit guides. Any divine support that feels right for you, if it feels right, you can call that in now. To hold with you, to be your partner in holding space. I'm just taking a few more breaths before we start to come back to the space. Just feeling what the energy is now. Feeling your heart. And just very slowly, folks, don't even rush this part. Don't even rush this part. Just maybe start to wiggle the toes, the fingers. And you can start to open your eyes. You know, slowing ourselves down like that is such a powerful practice to do before we enter into a coaching session or anywhere where we want to practice holding space. Getting ourselves grounded, connected, spacious first. And that's why I had you all do this before we move into the practice session. So I will talk to you about the practice session. And if there's any burning questions before you start, of course, I can answer those. And we'll go into this and then we'll come back and we'll process and it'll be question time. And that'll be really wonderful. So you'll be in groups of 3. And there'll be a listener and a speaker. And whoever's listening, you will invite a few moments of slowing down for the speaker. So however you want to practice this, maybe you'll practice as if you were opening a coaching session, just inviting the person to slow themselves down for a moment. You just get to kind of practice being the bowl. You know, what would I say if I was embodying the bowl to my client? Maybe I would just be in silence with them, or maybe I would invite them and say, this is a safe space where anything is allowed to be expressed. So you'll just take a minute to do that, just a minute to help the person get centered and present. And then the speaker, you're going to get a chance to talk about your experience navigating the liminal space over the last couple of years. It's what you'll be reflecting on. What has the liminal space been like for me and what is alive in me now? And the listener, as you're listening, this is really important, folks, okay? You are not going to ask any questions or have any kind of verbal response. So when you're listening, you don't have to be thinking about that because you're not going to be responding verbally. You'll be saying thank you. That's the only thing you'll say back to them. So as you're listening, I want you to practice being the bowl. Pay attention to how deep and slow your breathing is. Notice if your thoughts are racing, if you're getting distracted, can I bring myself back? Can I embody that expansive spaciousness through my being where I am present and can be with anything that they're sharing? And this is practice, remember, folks. So no one needs to be perfect here. Okay. So originally I was organizing this exercise around having 2 people per room. So if you have 2 people in your room, you'll just each have a turn as the listener and the speaker, and then you'll get to switch roles. Okay, folks, so that will be pretty easy. If you're in a group of 3, then there'll just be 2 listeners per person that speaks. And you'll share the space with 3 people. Each person will have a little bit less time to speak in a group of 3, because I'm going to send you away for about 20 minutes. We may have a little extra time, but I want to ask if there's any questions, burning questions that people are unclear about this practice.
There are no questions yet in the chat box on the practice. So
Okay, thank you so much.
if there are any questions, you can unmute and ask. If not, we can go ahead.
You guys are champs, man.
There's a question. Do we
Oh.
take the time ourselves? Ree, do you want to explain that question?
Do we take the, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Hi.
No, just you send us for 20 minutes, so I wanted to know if we count the time for each section or so, if we keep the track of the time, or if there's going to be a timer or anything like that.
Great question. Thank you. Yeah, no, you guys will keep track of your own time because all of a sudden you'll be brought back. And so if it's 2 people, maybe a little less than 10 minutes, right? About 8 minutes per person, because you'll need some time to kind of get into the space, to say hello, things like that. If it's 3 people, maybe 6 minutes per person about, but it doesn't need to be exact, folks. So it's just more important to be together, to listen, to share, and to kind of start to embody some of this stuff.
And Pradeep has raised his hand.
Yeah. Hi, Rachel. Great session till now. Just one small clarification. If you could kindly just talk a little more on navigating the liminal space, that will help me because I'm little unclear on the liminal space. In this conversation that we're going to have, are we talking about how I have been present to and navigating my liminal space, or what I'm perceiving of the world?
Either one, Pradeep, either one. It's perfect either way. It's just kind of a chance to reflect on what the last few years has brought up for me, or what it's been like, or what that being in that void in between space has been like.
And just to understand a little more on the liminal space, it's something that is wanting to happen, but has not yet happened, correct?
It's the place between the no longer and the not yet, yes. So that I'm not going back to the way things once were completely, and I'm not yet in the new way of things. And if you don't relate to this personally, in that way, just feel free to share whatever feels present for you in life right now. That feels like maybe it wants to be shared about the transitions maybe you've been in or the things you've experienced. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That makes it clear.
Oh, good. Great question. Yeah. Anybody else?
All right, Rachel. Before I open up the rooms, just a quick announcement. There could be a chance that you are the only one in the room. Don't panic. Give us a minute or 2 and we'll make sure that you have a partner or 2. That's why we've kept 3 participants per room, because sometimes our participants don't accept the invitation to join a breakout room for various reasons. Yeah. All right, so here you go. I'm creating the room. And as we open the rooms, you are likely to receive your invitations. Kindly accept and move to the room. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to be inviting a couple of people at least to share their experiences. But before that, I'd just like to make a few announcements for the rest of the session. So the good news first, Rachel's agreed to give us an extra 15 minutes. So we do have that much more time with her. So instead of closing at 7:30 p.m. India time, we will be closing at 7:45 p.m. India time. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to get into a few questions right away. Shweta has some questions lined up. Some of you had put in questions fairly early in the chat box. So we're just going to be doing that. And along with that, I'll request Nimesh to put up the feedback poll. So that's going to come on your screens pretty soon. Please do take a few moments to respond to the feedback poll. As soon as we're done with that, I'm going to post the CCU claim form. Okay, so I know that's a lot of things happening at the same time. But first, we're going to be taking some questions as you keep responding to the feedback poll. Shweta, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Sushma. So, Rachel, the first question that came in was from Sarita, who asked, how does one balance expectations? And when she said expectations, I mean expectations from a coaching session in terms of achieving something or getting somewhere, vis-a-vis holding space.
It's a great question. It's a great question because I know that a traditional coaching container kind of has those expectations, and that's how we contract with clients. So a couple responses I would say. One is if you do want to shift your practice just in ways that where you still meet goals and you still kind of have that forward movement, but you want to bring in more holding space, you could absolutely explain that to clients, you know, as you're contracting with them, that yes, this is all in service of moving forward, but you know, my intention is to be with you with what is in the moment in that service of moving forward. And this is a space where that you can relax, go within, feel more, express more, and just kind of give more of that context to them. Also, I just want to mention, you know, maybe they have expectations of you, but what if you could drop your expectations of them? You know, what if you could just even begin to say, there's no time limit for this. Their journey is perfect. I don't need anything from them in this session. Just to start to embody that in your own mind and being as you're listening and working with them might also shift the energy of the space.
Thank you for that. The second question was from Karen. Just give me a second. She says, I'm struggling with coaching being about change and accepting someone as is without thinking about change. Any thoughts on that?
I think some of you know what I'm going to say, maybe, but it really comes back to, can I accept myself without thinking about change? On my website, and I've written about this in the center's community online, but you know, for me in my own healing journey, there was a profound shift that happened for me in terms of my physical healing. I was ill for a very long time. And there was a really profound shift that happened when I actually stopped trying to heal myself. And so it really starts with us. You know, what is our own relationship to needing to change ourselves? What is our own level of acceptance of ourselves? And that might be a worthwhile exploration, because once we start to accept more of ourselves, we will naturally start to accept more of other people.
The next question was from Tarun, who asked, do we have to be disconnected with everyone around us, even our family, in order to be with ourselves?
No, but I will say it's harder sometimes. You know, it's more difficult sometimes to be really deeply connected to myself when in the presence of my family, their emotions, their stuff, right? I might get triggered, I might get reactive, I might get stressed. I mean, yes, of course, if we go off into a cave or in a beautiful forest, it's just me. It's so easy. I can just be with myself. But the reality is that we're living in communal lives. We're relational beings. And so, yes, I think there are ways to practice being with ourselves. And I will tell you all, folks, that it starts with slowing down. So when we're moving fast in our life, when we're thinking a lot, when we're moving really quickly, it is almost impossible to be present and be with ourselves. So even in your day-to-day life, anywhere that you can just begin to slow yourself down will help you to stay connected to yourself, even in the midst of a lot of people. And yes, Taryn just said spending time with nature helps to slow down. Absolutely, yeah. Taking time away from the busyness, if you can, to be with yourself, and then bringing more of that connected self back.
Okay. There was a question from Mangai who asked, can you help us explain how we explored holding space during a coaching session?
Yeah. So I'll remind you folks, it's not about anything that you're necessarily like doing differently, as long as you are attending to your own presence, as long as you are practicing presence, bringing in some of that bowl energy. That's when you actually start to hold space. It's your perspective, it's your come from. So if I just go into a session and say, you know what, my intention is to not trying to make anything different about this, or my intention is to be open and curious, that's when we start to bring in that piece. It comes through our being first. And depending on your relationship with the client, depending on the context, you might want to tell them a little bit about it too. Maybe we just slow down today. Maybe we just start with some breathing and start with some slowing down and see what wants to emerge, see what's present for us.
Thank you for that. The next question we have is from Piyush, who asks, in terms of evoking awareness, there may be a need to provoke or question the client. How can I do that without the acceptance of the client going away?
The words were provoke or challenge. Were those the words?
Provoke or question the client.
Provoke or question. Okay. So again, where is the question coming from in you? If the question is coming from a place where I need them to be different, feel different, talk different, then that wouldn't necessarily be the practice of holding space. But in holding space, we do ask questions. But those questions come from a place of, ooh, let's go more into this. How do I ask a question that honors this more, that validates this more, that deepens this exploration we're already in, that enhances awareness? So again, it's like we have to holding space is like, if you learn the art and practice of holding space, folks, your awareness of your own self is gonna, because we will know when we're asking a question from judgment or when we're asking a question from that unconditional place. And again, this takes a lot of practice. And there are transformative practices that I do teach in the course that will help you access more of what I'm talking about too.
Another interesting question is from Rai on what about the rapport when I present myself calm and slowing down, but the client is not used to that and is very active. How do we manage that then?
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll answer this question, and then I know some of you have to go, and and then we will stay, and that transition will happen. But this is a really good question. So if you can stay for this, please do. So everything is energy on some level, right? Everything, there's a vibration and energy to everything. And either we are being influenced by other people's energy and rhythm, the world's energy and rhythm, or we are doing the influencing. Those are the only two options, right? So if I'm out in the world and things are moving fast and it's loud and people are nuts and people are stressed and not paying attention, I can so easily get sucked into that. Or if a client is sitting in front of me and they're just like, buzzing and in their head and stressed out, it's like, yeah, I can get pulled into that. Easy. Or I can start to work on grounding myself. And again, like we practice, just work on slowing myself down no matter what's going on over there. And then what starts to happen over time is my pace, my rhythm, my way of being influences them. It's like a mama and baby, right? Mama holds the baby to co-regulate the baby, right? Baby's regulating to her heartbeat, right? Baby's regulating to her energy, right? It's the same thing with our clients. It's like we become that regulating force for them so that they know that when they're with us, with Rachel, around Rachel, I can actually start to let go because she's so calm and present. So anyway, I want to just acknowledge that we're at the time, folks. It's been such a pleasure and honor to be with you. And I hope that I can support you further in the future if it feels right in ways possible. You know how to find me through the Center for Transformational Coaching. And if you ever have questions or want to reach out, I would love to hear from you. For folks who want to stay, please do. I'm eager to share more. But for the rest of you, I hope you have a beautiful day, morning, evening. Yeah. And thank you so much.
Those of you who need to leave or log out now, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who are staying back, we continue with the questions and answers.
I think I'd like to officially thank you, Rachel. I think it's been a really powerful session. I think there was some bit of energy in the slowing down also. So thank you so much for doing this. And I know it's been hours of your morning, even before sunrise, that you came in, and you've really caused, so much of joy amongst all of us. So I thank you on behalf of the ICF Mumbai chapter and all our participants. Thank you so much. And I won't waste another moment, and we'll go back to questions. And at this point of time, I can invite all of you to come back on cameras. You can interact directly with Rachel as well. You could unmute yourself, or you could continue to put in your questions and comments in the chat box. And Shweta will be kind enough to relay them to Rachel, and we can have continue with the discussion. Shweta, we have a couple of hands raised. We have Johnny and I see Brunal. Please go ahead, Johnny. And in the meantime, Shweta, if you have questions which are coming in, please jump in as well.
Thank you, Anu. Rachel, in our breakout, I just realized as I was listening and also speaking that the liminal space is what both of us are wanting to be in all the time. And we kind of enjoyed the space, and we looked at how we, each of us, coming from two different spaces, how these has been a great source of joy and peace, and wanting to be in that. And then I was able to connect with Eckhart's power of now, and that's the only real space that we are in. So I just wanted to share that and have your view on that.
That is so...
Can I request the others who are not speaking? Yes, thank you so much. If you could mute yourself so that we don't disturb the flow. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have to respond. What a beautiful, powerful share that was. because something I didn't mention, yes, I mean, the liminal space can bring up the breadth and depth of the human experience, like all the emotions. And like, yeah, it's not just necessarily grief and anger and pain, but yeah, a joy and a peace, right? And a, wow, it feels good to just be really deeply in myself for the first time in a long time. So beautiful. Thank you for bringing that in. Yeah, really, really nicely said.
So I think, Rachel, there was another follow-on question in terms of other people's energy and conversation. So Pradeep was asking, how do you hold space when you're angry and not in control of yourself, especially if you're surrounded with toxic people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough one, right? That's a tough one. So sometimes, you know, when we're, I don't know if you're all familiar with the word triggered, right? But when we're triggered, right, by our own emotion, and it's really hard to be present, and we're reactive and we're emotional, and there's a really strong emotion happening within us. It's not necessarily that we can just like, I'll start holding space for myself right now. And, you know, it doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes we actually have to get some space. We actually have to get some space in order to hold space for ourselves. So sometimes we have to walk away. Sometimes we have to create boundaries. Sometimes we have to find time for ourselves. But I will say, folks, that again, a lot of times the things that we have a hard time holding, the rotten fruit, we have an immediate judgment about. Immediate. It's like 2 seconds. I start getting angry and I'm like, don't be angry. Anger is wrong. You can't be this way. You can't say that. You can't feel that. And that just makes it worse, right? Johnny brought up Eckhart Tolle, and I'll bring him up again. What we resist persists. So if you're in that moment where you're feeling that anger, if you could just simply say to yourself, I accept this is how I'm feeling. Even if you might not fully believe it, you could just meet yourself as the bowl in just a little moment. It would most likely soften a little bit for you. It would most likely shift the energy a little bit for you. So I would say both of those answers are what comes to my mind with that question.
We resist persist, Asha. Washa. We resist persist.
So we have Brunal. Brunal, could you
Sure,
ask your
Anu.
question? Yeah.
Thanks, Anu. So, Rachel, thank you for this beautiful session. And this is just a curious question as a question to you, your personal kind of sharing is when you are holding a space and when you are listening completely and when you're probably observing the client and probably also sensing something deep within yourself to know what's happening with the client. If there are 2 or 3 kind of options for you that either you take the conversation ahead by what you are right now feeling, or is it like right now the way you're observing, or the way you have your own gut sense to probably get into. If you are in a situation where you have 2-3 options and you have to choose one, those kind of a situation, what do you usually follow or give a preference if you have to put that across to the client?
That's a great question. Well, again, you know, when we're holding space, we're practicing that spaciousness, that getting in touch with our open nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I think a lot of times something will start to emerge in me, or I can, you know, when we're in that place of deep connection and openness, there's a lot of different kinds of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I would have one way to recommend how we share that knowing. I don't think there is. I think when we're, and I don't mean to have a cop-out answer here, but I think when we're fully present, and we can trust that what's happening is for the highest good, then whatever we share is okay. You know, like we can trust in how and when to share. But a lot of times I can just speak from personal experience. I've picked up on something, and if I just wait, right? If I just pause and continue to be spacious, it will come out in my client more often than not.
Beautiful.
Or there'll be an opening, right? If I'm worried about how to do it and I let that go, and then all of a sudden, I remember a particular session where this happened, where the client, she just opened the door, and I was like, yes, right? Because I was already there, and I was like, and I could just really meet her in that, because I'd already been in that myself. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it does. It does. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rachel.
of course, yeah.
Thank you. I had another question I put in there is, if you have to recommend one resource to know this beautiful work for all of us, what would that be? I'm sorry, you can answer later or now, whatever.
No, it's a great question. Well, I definitely invite you all to take the course if you can. There's going to be another holding space training coming up for India residents in the fall. It's 8 weeks. I would love, love, love to see you there. If that's not a possibility for you, or if that doesn't interest you, there is the book A Shift in Being, which many of you may have read. Leon Vanderpool, who's the founder of the Center for Transformational Coaching, wrote it. It's more about the deep coaching modality, but it draws on a lot of this work of holding space. So either of those two resources are fabulous.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah.
I'll jump
Are
in.
any other questions, or we'll
No, we
have,
can take the hands raised here.
Yeah. So I think I saw Tilang, if I spell your name or say your name right. I think I saw your hand raised. Yeah, so go ahead, please.
Thank you. First of all, I really feel thankful. I felt like I am working in the same path like you are. And I would like to share short a little bit, and then I would like to ask the question later on. One other thing I felt like interesting is there is a lot of I call disconnected emotion, more than destructive or I could say disconnect, and unpleasant. That you mentioned earlier, as someone asked a question about anger, and I faced that too. So that's what I mentioned about it. I classify as disconnected. When we are, or we feel disconnected, it's very hard to step in that space. And that was my journey, to explore through these emotions that is so hard to be in. And I worked through that. And then the more I'm into it, the more I felt like, wow, being with that. And I probably worked through the space of liminal, or whatever you call it. So one other thing I was thinking about that is about being in the moment and being with the moment. So that's something I combine a lot of things inside it packed into one. And I'm wonder, what is your journey before you get here and now? Because I just share a little bit about my journey, how I get it, I get in touch with that.
It's a big question. I would say, just real quick, because I know we have a few other questions, but I would say that the way that I got here was through, like you said, profound disconnection and resistance. I mean, it was literally and I'm not enlightened by any means, folks. I'm still working on this stuff, but it was 20 years of resistance to holding my experience as it was, and to loving my experience as it was. And so I just want to let everybody know that wherever you are on the journey, no judgment, because it's part of it. It's all part of it. And I can say, looking back, how true that is, that even though it took me 20 years to get to exactly where I am now, there was no waste of time. It was such deep, important learning. And so I could say a lot more, but I think that's what I want to share now. And just step by step, baby step by baby step, we expand our capacity to hold, to be with. It just takes time. It takes time. And lots of compassion and lots of forgiveness, folks, because we may be expanding our capacity and then boom, fall right on your face. And then expand your capacity and boom, fall right on your face. I have a lot of students who say, oh, I can hold space for my clients so well. And then I walk into the house and my partner says something, my husband or wife says something, and it's like, no holding space. It's like judgment. It's like, oh, you know, so patience, forgiveness, grace on the journey. Yeah. I know we're at time, so I just want to check in. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
we have 2 hands raised, and we also have a few questions
Mhm.
in the chat box. So maybe if you're okay, maybe we could send you some of these questions which are there in the
Sure,
chat
yeah.
box, and if you could take time to answer them. But I
Sure.
do know that we have 2 people who've raised hands. I think Abhimanyu has written his question in the chat box. So are you okay to take one more question?
Of
or
course,
are
yeah.
we
Yes, yes,
okay?
absolutely.
So Rai, over to you. Please ask your question, and post that I promise to send all the other questions that we've gathered to Rachel, and as she responds, we will let you know.
Thank you. Thank you for the space and answering all the questions. I was lucky because you answered one already from me. So this question comes from the transactional coaching mind. So I little by little, I'm practicing holding space in my coaching. And I think I use it as a tool together with the structure that I've learned. And what gives me, what's the base of my session is the structure that I've learned. And well, maybe you know the steps and the commitments. So I kind of combine all that, the holding the space, whatever is coming, but going somewhere or taking together the client and me somewhere. And I wonder if I just dive deep into holding space, what happens? I mean, does the structure completely falls down? And if it does, is there a kind of resolution? But I know the answer can be, you know, that those are 2 different, I mean, it doesn't come with holding space, but is there like a storyline in each session or in the whole process, the coaching process? I hope I'm making I don't know if it's okay, if you understand, yeah, what I'm asking, you know, like if it's completely about holding space, then what is taking us, or is there like a resolution or wrapping up or something?
Well, I think, Rai, it's about what I'm really sensing into is like, am I in charge and am I in control of this? Or can I truly start to work on surrendering? I mean, it's a way bigger question, right? I mean, I think what you're asking is actually like the biggest question, or one of the biggest questions you could ask. You're talking about it in the microcosm of the session, but it's really about, do I need my ego to know where we're going, to feel in control, to feel safe, to feel worthy, to feel valuable? Or can I so deeply start to surrender to what is actually already happening without any need to control? Can I trust my client so deeply in whatever they're thinking, feeling, right? I'm telling you, folks, if you start to embody this, you will relax so deeply and your work will become so enjoyable because you're not in control, you're not responsible. You are just the partner, you are just walking alongside something that's already underway.
I even felt it in the way I was asking and in the way that you answered. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the question. Yeah, really beautiful.
I think really thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I think with extreme gratitude, I'd like to kind of thank you for kind of being here and being able to present in the most gorgeous ways.